Are you planning to create a new vegetable garden but don't know whether to choose raised beds or to simply plant in ground? Well, if so, you've come to the right place, because we'll go over all of the main differences of growing vegetables in raised beds and growing them in ground. So let's get started. In-ground gardening or in-ground planting involves planting directly into the native soil. This method is great if you already have healthy and nutrient-rich soil that has good drainage and air circulation. With in-ground gardening, more space can be utilized because raised beds can't be placed in every corner of your yard. Taller crops like corn are also best planted in-ground because if they are planted in tall raised beds, it can become difficult to harvest. In-ground gardening also can save costs and materials because there is no need to build or fill the raised bed gardens. However, in-ground gardening can have some downsides, such as poor soil quality. If the native soil is rocky, contaminated, or has a lot of clay in it, the vegetables will have a difficult time growing in that soil. Improving poor soil can take a lot of time and effort, sometimes even taking up to 2 to 3 years until the soil becomes fertile and good for plants to grow in. The next problem or drawback is pests and weed problems. In-ground gardening can expose plants to more pests and weeds such as mice and rats, slugs, snails, and grass that can creep in from your lawn a lot easier. These damage and compete with the plants for nutrients and water. Raised bed gardening involves planting in containers or boxes that are filled with soil above ground level. They can be made of many different materials such as wood, metal, and stone even. Raised bed gardening can offer several benefits such as control over soil quality. With raised beds, you can choose the type and quality of soil you want to use for your plants. This can improve plant health and yield. The next advantage with raised beds is better drainage and air circulation. Raised beds can prevent waterlogging and root rot by allowing excess water to drain away from the soil easily. They can also improve air circulation around the plants, which can prevent fungal diseases and also some pests. Longer growing season. Raised beds usually tend to warm up faster in the spring than in-ground beds and are usually exposed to more sunlight and air. This will allow you to start planting earlier in the season and extend your harvest later into the autumn. Easier access. Most raised beds, especially higher ones, make it easy to plant seedlings into, pull weeds out, and many other gardening tasks. Raised beds are also good for people who have disabilities. Actually, the community garden that I volunteer for uses raised bed gardens for the sole reason to make it easier for people who have disabilities, such as those in a wheelchair, to get back into gardening. However, raised beds do have some disadvantages, such as higher costs and materials. Raised beds can cost a lot more than in-ground beds. They can involve buying or building containers, filling them in soil, and then maintaining them over time. Maintenance. Raised beds will have to be maintained because otherwise they will rot, especially if they were made with non-treated wood. We've had this happen to many of our wooden raised beds before that we've made with pallets, that non-treated wood. So if you're planning to make raised beds, just make sure that the wood you're using will last, like maybe put some oil on it so that the wood will last at least for a few years. More watering. Raised beds usually tend to dry out faster than in-ground beds as they are exposed to more evaporation and drainage, will therefore require more frequent watering, especially in warmer weather. Limited space. Raised beds can also take up more space than in-ground beds as they need room for pathways in between them. They can also limit the size and type of plants that can be grown in them. So, in conclusion, both in-ground and raised bed gardening have their pros and cons depending on the situation and preference of each gardener. Some factors to consider between choosing from them are the quality of the native soil, the availability of space, the budget and resources, the type of plants you want to grow, and the climate and weather. By considering all of these factors carefully, you can decide which method suits you best.